Hello and welcome to the Skiffy and Fanny Show's Torture Cinema.
Why did I have to fall in love with a female scientist?
Wait, he does say that, doesn't he?
He does.
He does.
Wait, I'm so confused. Is he upset that she's a scientist or upset that he wanted a male scientist and he fell in love with a female one?
It's the former. This is just shortly before he makes a remark about her teeth, isn't it?
No one ever blamed him for being a romantic. Okay, I'm Shaun.
I'm Trish.
I'm David.
And today on our live Torture Cinema show, we will discuss the 1957 science fiction horror classic, From Hell It Came, directed by Dan Milner and written by Richard Bernstein, based on a story by Bernstein and Jack Milner, apparently the brother of the Dan, I guess. It features Todd Andrews, Tina Carver, Linda Watkins, John McNamara, Greg Palmer, Robert Swan, Baines Barron, ooh, I like the alliteration, A+ Baines, Suzanne Ridgway, and others.
I think we do have to clarify that based on the way the words appear on the screen, it would appear that the film's actual title is It From Hell Came. This film was selected by our Patreon supporters based on a poll of bad films around the theme of plants, suggested by our own Paul Weimer. We have a special thanks to our Patreon supporters at the end of this discussion, but if you're not yet subscribed to our Patreon, please do, for as little as $1 a month.
Please share your questions and comments with us about our show at skiffyandfanty.com/listener suggestions. They might get discussed right here on future shows. If you aren't already here, please join us on Twitch on Shaun's Alphabet Streams channel, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central, starting after today, to be a part of our interactive live streaming format. Please tell folks about this show and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Word of mouth is a big deal for fan-run podcasts, and we need your help to find new ears for this ridiculous show.
And our show is ridiculous. Just wait. Just you wait. I have forced David to watch not only Independence Day, but also 1999's The Mummy. Somehow I've convinced him he's going to do this.
You have.
Yeah, don't worry. You're going to get me twice.
Careful what you wish for.
I know what you're going to pick, some like existentialist, absurdist horror from like the 1960s where I may not think I'm in reality anymore after seeing it. That's what you're going to do to me.
You don't know what I'm going to do on the actual Mummy podcast itself.
You're going to make me hurt. I know you're going to hurt me, David. Okay, so let's get to what we're drinking. As always, because we're live on the internet, please drink responsibly. We do sometimes have alcoholic beverages on this show. Don't drink and drive. Don't do anything dumb. You know, if you have a drinking problem, please seek help. If you're underage, don't drink because it's illegal. All of that good stuff. Please be responsible. Don't do dumb things. On that note, Trish, what beverage are you drinking?
As it happens, today, right now, I'm drinking the pure stuff, H2O, but I'm drinking it in this special insulated mug that has palm trees on it and Santa on a hammock between the palm trees, so I figured that was appropriate.
There isn't a Santa in this movie.
Well, the palm trees are, though.
But hold on.
No, there's no Santa.
What time of year does this movie take place in, David?
Oh, the perpetual summer of where it is.
Oh, got it. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. It's next in the script, Trish. Are you gonna...
Sorry. And you, David, what are you drinking today?
I'm having some Amontillado. You, Shaun?
Wait, what is that?
Like the cask of Amontillado?
Yeah, with the death happens for in the Poe story.
Right.
What kind of alcohol is that?
It's a type of sherry.
And you put it in like one of those like sniffer glasses?
Well, I put it in a brandy snifter. I like it that way. But
Okay.
yeah, it's nice.
Nice. It's not cognac, Leilani.
It's Gothic,
apparently
so
sherry. So nice. Okay. Well, cool. Well, for me, I made something that fit our theme today. This is a gin and sin, a 1950s cocktail, given that this film takes place in 1957 and it's tropical, but I made it with a little extra sin. Gin and sin is gin, orange juice, and in my case, I put some Cointreau in there, and then it has a little bit of grenadine as well, and some lemon juice. But I chose, instead of lemon juice, I chose to go with some orange bitters, Angostura. So there we go. There you go. That's what I'm drinking. Good times. Okay, so David, you have been voluntold to do the summary from Hell It Came. And so, what is this movie about?
Well, on an unnamed fictional tropical island that is receiving a nice cozy blanket of radioactive fallout, there's been a palace coup in the indigenous community there, where the rightful king has been poisoned, and the usurper has taken his place in collaboration with their sorcerer. And the king's son is Kiyo, is being condemned for said murder that he did not commit, and curses everyone as he is ritualistically killed. So it's basically Hamlet, except that Claudius wisely takes out Hamlet at the beginning, and then Hamlet comes back as a walking radioactive tree, exactly as Shakespeare wanted to go in the initial draft. So we also have a group of American scientists who are investigating the fallout, which we learn is no worse than a standard X-ray, 24 hours a day. Though I guess we need to bear in mind that this is the same period when you could get your feet X-rayed in shoe stores. So they're also concerned about the plague that is affecting the islanders in a very, very brief subplot that doesn't come back very much. And there's a science versus superstition thing going on as well. But the two combine when, sure enough, Kiyo comes back as Tabanga, a magical walking killer tree that also happens to be radioactive, and he goes on a very leisurely rampage of revenge.
Yeah, I think that's pretty
I think
accurate.
that about covers it.
Yeah, I think I get this pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a lot to talk about with this movie, but I will note that David's alter ego, Leonard Maltin, gave this film 1.5 out of 4 stars.
Generous.
Yeah, and would you like to know what his review said, David?
Go ahead.
As walking tree movies go, this is at the top of the list.
The Time Out review for this is pretty funny. It's from Hell It Came, and the review begins, and to hell it can go.
It is a special movie, I think.
But you know, in the annals of cinema, there really are not that many killer tree movies. There are some, and I mean, we've got obviously some gold-plated classics in terms of killer plant movies, right? We have both versions of Little Shop of Horrors, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, technically speaking, and you know, so some pretty solid contenders for otherwise. But in killer trees, there just aren't that many, and most of them not that good. I'd say probably Island of the Doomed, aka Man Eater of Hydra, is probably the best of the bunch.
Man Eater
But
of Hydras?
Hydra, yeah.
What a title! Wait.
Would you
Camp-
classify triffids as trees or as plants? Because if you classify triffids as trees, I think those are strong contenders rated against this.
They would be. I think of the triffids as plants.
Okay.
So that's why I ruled them out. So, there's this, there's Island of the Doomed, there's William Friedkin's The Guardian with the baby eating tree. There's a few others out there, but if we eliminate the movies where the killer trees just make cameos like Poltergeist, The Wizard of Oz, and The Evil Dead, the pickings are slim on the ground. In which case, this certainly, as far as walking killer tree films, this one probably is the best.
Wow. I gotta say, I was thinking, David, you're like, oh, there's not a lot. It's mostly plants. And I was like, even some of the films I could think of where trees are killing people, they're not like The Happening. The trees they're killing people, but it's like not just trees. It's like all of nature, and trees are just like one part of it that are killing people. So they don't work alone.
And if we put the two films up head to head, I think From Hell It Came would still come out ahead.
I mean, this is certainly more fun to watch. The Happening
it's also 70 minutes long.
Yeah, there's that true. Yeah, you're right. It's much shorter.
Man, let's not use up all the potential likes.
Okay.
Oh, good Lord. I was very amused to find out that Stan Lee supposedly, I don't know how true this is, got the idea for Groot from this movie.
I wouldn't be at all surprised.
Just like,
when you look at, we shouldn't use up all the likes yet, but we have, whatever else we might say about the film, a memorable looking monster from courtesy of Paul Bladel, and you can see how it would lend itself very nicely to comic book form. In fact, it looks like it stepped out of a comic book.
It does kind of. I think you're kind of right that it has that like 1950s era comic book monster style. It just maybe this version was not ready for primetime yet. To be fair, I'm sure this movie was not primetime, so it supposedly was a double bill packaged with a film called The Disembodied.
Not one I'm familiar with, that one.
Well, neither am I. It is a film about a photographer on an expedition in the jungle who runs afoul of a voodoo cult. So, not totally different from this film.
Oh, making a note of this one.
It is not yet rated. Oh, no, it does have a rating. It's not rated in terms of MPAA nonsense, but it has a 4.8. So it
wouldn't have been.
Yeah, it is a much higher rating, and it is presently on Tubi. For free. I don't know if that applies in Canada, but there you go, folks.
That would as well, yeah.
But Paul Burke is in it. I don't know if that means anything to you, but there you go.
Yeah, his for science fiction fans, his probably best known role would be in Not of This Earth, where he's the extraterrestrial vampire.
See what I'm telling you, Trish? The Leonard Maltin of
Sorry, Paul Burke or Paul Birch?
Paul Burke, Burke.
Oh, okay. Different actor.
Mm-hmm.
Never mind. I was thinking Paul Birch, Birch.
Oh no, yeah, not named after a tree, which would be much more interesting.
Which would be perfect, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we can get to some likes then, and I think the first like I would love to go to our resident Leonard Maltin of horror, which will be David. And so, David, I hope you don't mind I'm saying this about you. I mean it with like love. I genuinely like Leonard Maltin. So me saying you're like the Leonard Maltin of horror to me is like a compliment, but it is also kind of funny to say. So, but anyway.
I have to say I actually have an embarrassment of likes. But I guess I'm going to have to go with Actually, if one of you has Tabanga himself, I'll give up that like and go with my other one.
I have 2 likes. I'm hoping that one of them will be left to me. But, if you want to take Tabanga, you can, because I have something else.
Okay, you go with Tabanga,
Okay.
and I'll second you when it's when we get to your like. So my other like then is the way the film functions as a kind of transitional point in American horror.
Oh.
And it's really interesting the way that it functions because I mean if we look at step back with a slightly broader picture here, the horror movie basically becomes temporarily extinct after 1946, where we get the tail end of the Universal horror films, and then there's nothing really made anywhere until 1951, when horror makes a comeback with A Thing from Another World. But then in the rest of the ensuing decade, it's very much science fiction horror, right? And you even get a lot of the same like classic characters, but are coming back in science fictional contexts. So the werewolf, the vampire, I was a teenage werewolf, they're all explained in some way other than curses, right? They're not supernatural. And that then in 1957, that all changes because of a movie that came out a couple of months prior to From Hell It Came, and that's Hammer's The Curse of Frankenstein. And then Horror of Dracula comes out the following year, and so the gothic supernatural horror comes back in color with sex and gore, and reigns supreme, for all intents and purposes for the for the coming decade. And so but there are a few exceptions, like the Zombies of Moratau, but there are, and the Cult of the Cobra, but there are very, very few supernatural American horror films in the 1950s. And
So with
From Hell
those,
It Came,
sorry,
yeah,
just, so for the intervening period, would that be more the atomic horrors like them and
yeah,
mutations and
yeah.
things?
Yeah, all the big bug movies, all the giant monster films that come out, all the aliens, the Man from Planet X, the Dawn of this Earth. Like, so so we get a lot of mutations, a lot of things caused by radiation, and a lot of extraterrestrials. So replacing the what had come before. So now things aren't destroyed with crucifixes, but with radioactive isotopes, and
Cool.
so on.
Right, so
So
horror, but explicable by science.
yeah, with lots of inverted commas here. Um, so From Hell It Came, which sort of comes out the year that the Gothic is like Curse of Frankenstein is a phenomenon when it comes out, right? It's this international uh, box office sensation, which then triggers not just the run of horror and Hammer and the explosion of British horror films, but then continental Europe a couple of years later follows suit. So there's just this tidal wave of gothic horror that comes out. And From Hell It Came is this interesting hybrid in that our monster has both supernatural, like it's supernatural and it's radioactive. So it's this neat conjunction of the two. And I mean, for all that it does it, rather clumsily, there's a kind of dense thematic onion that is created with that and the social political colonial context that it integrates into its science fiction and supernatural fusing as well. So I find there's a lot to chew on in the movie.
You're right to bring that up because it is interesting that the beginning of the film obviously wants to definitely pin the scientific against the supernatural. Here are these scientists who are here to deal with this plague, and they're trying to deal with it in the most scientific way that 1957 could imagine. And the local people are in direct conflict with them because they have their beliefs, and the scientists are perceived as pushing those beliefs on them in very aggressive ways, and so there's a lot of animosity, and now by the time our story begins, violence. And yet it is a combination of science and magic that both brings out the big horror that unites everyone and also resolves it. And so it's almost like the film at the end kind of suggests that you don't have to pick one. You could take the magic and the science together, because they're like peanut butter and jelly. Like, they go together like right, perfectly, which I feel like the film could hammer home more and make that a much more interesting conversation. It just sort of like feels like it kind of just happens that way.
It is there, isn't it? Right. I mean, even in the way that the monster is defeated, right? It's with a gun, right? An ordinary bullet, right? But the bullet has to hit the symbolic dagger, right? So the bullet has to trigger the magic for the monster to be defeated. And the kind of science versus superstition tension that is running all the way through the film, and we are spending almost all of our time with the American characters, who and all of their conversation is about superstition being equated with barbarism and primitivism and so on and so forth, right? And yet it is their rational actions which make everything exponentially worse, right? They dig up the tree, they free the tree, and then let's inject it with this stuff and see what happens. Oh, that didn't work out so well. Perhaps we erred.
I mean, I do like that. Weirdly enough, the local population of some vague 1950s interpretation of what they think island people are like, they're like, let's just shove it in a hole and light it on fire and walk away because that'll solve the problem. And it's like, I respect it because it's 1957, so they don't have like, and it's kind of that weird like cultures meeting at that point of like it's a narrative of like civilization meeting like the uncivilized, which is, we'll come back to that later. So it's 1957, and I'm willing to give them a break from the fact that they didn't stay to make sure it was dead, because then they're surprised later when it's walking down the trail and it's like, oh my God. But like, if this was 2024 and they did that, I would just be like, nah, I'm not buying it. No, you cannot do that. Like, you got to make sure it's dead. Always make sure. Like, there would be, today, we'd have a version of Scream, which would just be like Jamie Kennedy, like sitting there going like, and always make sure that the giant tree monster is actually dead in the hole you lit on fire. But it's 1957, so we can kind of forgive them for not thinking that through.
You can't blame them for having dropped a tree down a hole and then set things on fire. Trees down holes on fire, that should take care of the issue. Right?
True. But it is supernatural, David.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, fair point.
They have now learned, right? So next time they have a giant walking tree monster, they definitely know that when you drop it in a hole and light it on fire, make sure it's gone. You post a card.
Well, look for the video game weak spot that the Tobanga is sure to have, right? Like the knife sticking halfway out of its heart.
Yeah. Oh Lord.
Well, while we're talking about themes and stuff, I had a craft point to note that is neither a like nor a dislike, but I was just struck by the fact that this movie has a cold open. I was confused at first, wondering if the version that I was seeing had somehow cut off the beginning, because I'm used to old black and white movies opening with title cards and stuff, and this just jumped right into the guy tied, spread-eagled to the ground, and the quote trial thing that did not, they're basically, we're condemning you, and he asks his wife to testify, and she lies and says, yeah, he killed his old man. But I'm very much used to old black and white movies starting with a title card, and, this had a cold open. And so, David, can you comment on whether that was a thing that was starting to happen then?
Yeah.
Or had it been happening before and I just didn't know?
There definitely were some others in the 50s, and naturally, I'm blanking on some other examples now that you've raised it. But there were, The Angry Red Planet would be
Hmm.
another one. In fact, now there, I'd want to double check because that one, I think it might actually save its titles for the end.
Oh.
Really unusual, but it definitely. So I would need to double check that, but I know that it does have the cold open. So and may have the cold hole, as it were. So there certainly were some other examples prior to that. Yeah, there's not, at least I'm certainly, there's nothing coming to mind from the decades prior to the 50s. But we definitely do start to see it then.
Isn't there a thing, David? I mean, I don't know how much of it is apocryphal, but George Lucas talks a bunch about when Star Wars came out, getting yelled at and fined for the fact that it opens with like an opening crawl and the credits are like at the end of the movie. So we don't actually see who is in the film. We don't see who made the film until the very end. This is the story he tells. So like, when did those rules? Like, when did that like unofficial or literal rule start to take place? Is that after this period?
Well, I wasn't aware of that being a requirement at all. I mean, again, if we take the example of the Angry Red Planet, we don't get any indication of who's in the movie until, if memory serves, the end of the movie. So,
Yeah.
and so,
Well, here's a quote.
was
This might
it?
help.
Yeah.
I took this from Wikipedia, but it has a like link to it so people can go. But his decision to omit opening credits in his film Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back led him to resign from the Directors Guild of America after being fined $250,000 for not crediting the director during the opening title sequence. So it must have been it's something specific to the rules of the Directors Guild of America, so maybe not like a film rule per se.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
So okay, and so that must have come in later anyway.
Yeah,
because that certainly wouldn't. That wasn't. That obviously wasn't the case at this point.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So I think that's interesting because I know like
unless it was something that had to be part of the credits, right?
Yeah.
Just whenever the credits happen, I don't know. Yeah, this is all news to me.
I wonder if like the Directors Guild. When did the Directors Guild of America? Let's find out. The history of the Directors Guild of America. They were founded in 1936. So I wonder if maybe by the time this film is made, they don't quite have the power. Yeah, because 1960 they merged with the Television Directors Guild and the Radio Directors Guild. Radio and television. I guess they're the same thing. Whatever. So then they become the Directors Guild. So maybe after about 1960, they have considerable power because they have a lot of people in there. And that's when they begin to enforce these rules. That's something I might need to look up. And so Lucas joining the guild because he wants to be a filmmaker, blah, 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 blah. Maybe he runs afoul of their very specific rules. And those rules really haven't gained much traction or been applied by 1957. So
it would be interesting to know also because it's really towards the end of the 60s with the new Hollywood era that the directors start to gain a lot more power, right? We're still at a stage. Well, as we're going through the 50s, we're in it's the collapse of the studio era. But prior to then, with very few with exceptions, right? Directors were essentially gun for hire, right? You go direct the movie you're told to direct. And as the studio system collapses and when we Hollywood goes through its very troubled period through the 50s and then into the 60s, when we hit the end of the 60s and we get the Easy Rider and Bonnie and Clyde and the whole new Hollywood era begins, and then there's a big shift in power from producers to directors. Which Lucas would unintentionally help to destroy at the end of the following decade.
Thanks, Lucas. So I think that leads us then to Trish. Did you give your like? You're saying Tabunga, right? You like Tabunga?
Yeah, I was going to say, I actually enjoy the monster in this movie. I'm not going to say it's really a scary monster. It moves at a slow walking pace so that anyone with reasonable coordination should be able to escape it. It is a little shorter than you might expect. It's kind of chunky and squat. I see in Wikipedia that the original design by Paul Blaisdell was a thin, spindly tree monster with long, spidery branches. And of course, that turned out to be too hard to work for actual filming. And so they made the people who made the rubber suit made it thicker so that a person could actually work inside it. But what I really like about it is the expression carved into the face. It's supposed to be this terrifying scowl of rage, but to me, it looks cute. I can't help it. It's just, let me put a thing into the chat.
No, you didn't share a picture of the damn tree.
But it's got this angry little scowl on its face. It looks like it would very easily make a toy that would be fun to play with.
It'd be like one of those stretchy toys from like the 90s where they made like the stretch arm.
Yeah.
It's stretch tree strong. Yeah.
Yes, so I just had to smile every time I saw the monster come on, which certainly is not the intended effect, but it made it more fun for me to watch the movie. As far as the concept goes, supernatural horror and curses and the thing that cannot be killed with fire or simple gunshots or most things that they try. I guess, it's perseverance is the scariest thing about it, that they, for quite a while, can't figure out how to kill it, or how to keep it dead. And certainly its revenge quest is quite understandable. It's not doing a lot of random killings, at least not at first. It's going after the people who unfairly killed Chemo. Judicial murder. It goes after Chemo's wife who betrayed him. It goes after the usurper king. And it goes after the witch doctor. Those are its three targets at first. Only after everybody gangs up on it and tries to burn it does it really start, just going after anybody it can get its branches on. So I have to have a lot of sympathy for Tabunga, and Tabunga was fun to watch. So, the movie definitely has that going for it.
I agree absolutely. I think it's a very charming monster, and Blaisdell has given us so many of the wonderful low budget B monsters. I mean, he did a lot for Roger Corman, so it Conquered the World, the Invasion of the Saucermen, the she creature, example after example. And it's funny you should mention that he wasn't as tall as you were expecting, because that's so much like the anecdote that Roger Corman would tell about the original design for the Venusian and It Conquered the World. They imagined it sort of a squat figure, and I gather it didn't originally have like the cone on top. They just shot a scene of with Beverly Garland sort of looking down the monster and saying, "Take that," and kicking it. And Corman said he learned a very important lesson that day: always make your monster taller than your leading lady. So they built up the monster now has a nice tall cone on its head. But yeah, it's here we are, talking about this film, which is readily available in high definition on on iTunes or whatever, almost 70 years after it was made, and there's and also look everything you just described about how anyone with reasonable coordination should be able to get away from it, but there is this unstoppable quality to it. Look how you have anticipated just about every single zombie and slasher movie for decades to come.
Well, but also, I think some films in the more modern era would deal with the unstoppable force idea in a way that is perhaps more menacing. I think of like It Follows, for example, where it also lumbers, but it never stops. So no matter how far you get away from it, it eventually catches up to you. And that sort of deals with the fact that the world is finite. There's only so many distances you can go before it gets to you. To some degree, this film just like, I suppose you would just have to have more moments where like everybody thinks they're safe now because they're on an island. It's not terribly big. And it turns out they're not, because the tree monster is just, it never stops. It doesn't sleep. It just keeps going forever. They just don't really
it also
film
just
that.
always pops up behind you, right? It's a kind of stealth tree monster, but I mean, it has the most wonderful natural camouflage, right? Which tree is the monster? How could you ever spot the tree with the cartoon face and the dagger in its chest? But
True. No one
most
has
of the
ever
attacks,
mistaken that for a real tree.
no. But you'll note how it's always getting people from behind. So again, much like the Jason Voorhees and others to come, they may be walking slowly, but through the magic of off-screen space, they're able to catch up very quickly.
I mean, curiously enough, this film is anticipates Star Wars, because Red Leader in Star Wars says it came from behind before he's shot and killed. It was, in fact, Topanga, like the tree monster guy.
You go.
Yeah. Who knew? That's what Red Leader was worried about all along. It wasn't TIE fighters. It was a tree monster in space.
Wow, that's quite a stretch.
But also with that face, I mean, we're not really too many steps removed from the Ents in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah, not too far. Yeah, that's fair. I just want to note, I'm sorry to derail, but like I have From Hell It Came open on IMDb, and apparently like the little like video part on IMDb plays like little trailers and stuff. Well, some point it cycled to like trailers for other movies, and so I just glance over, and it is a woman with a stick poking a guy in the ass violently with a stick. And I'm so confused, because that is not this movie. It's in color, for one. I have no idea what movie it is, but all I do is I look over, and here's a guy in shorty shorts getting rammed with this stick in his butt. I'm so lost right now. What is happening to me?
Well, certainly I can think of a character in this movie who deserves to be poked with a stick, but we'll get on to our dislikes later.
There are multiple
but
characters.
Shaun, tell us, please, what is your like about this movie?
Nothing. There's nothing about this movie I like. I don't
Really?
like this
Because I
movie.
can think of another major like about this movie.
I mean, realistically, like, I'm glad it was short.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah.
The pacing was good. Things moved right along.
I think I would have been fine with it if certain story changes had occurred. The tree thing doesn't bother me. Like, it's kind of silly and ridiculous, but it's also like 1957, so like whatever. I'm not expecting the greatest creature features at this era. So I kind of just sort of accept it to some degree. Like, yeah, it's this lumbering tree thing that doesn't really emote and just like walks, but it gets you eventually. So you kind of accept it and you just go with it. But to me, like, I appreciate that this film made me think about the things I'm going to bring up with my dislike, because so much of this film, like, this is a film you could write a dissertation on about like 1950s America and its influences in the Pacific. Because like there are so much in this film that immediately my brain was like, oh, I read academic work on that. I read academic work on that. I read about this. I read about that. Like, there's tons in here. And I realized that's not a thing they meant to do at all. But yet they did it. And so all I'm sitting here going is like, oh, so we're going to talk about, like the fact that they're doing nuclear tests in the Pacific. They mentioned that in this. And it's apparently a problem because the tree also becomes radioactive somehow. And also, like, the interactions between, America and, the local populations of the very specific islands. Like, this film has a very particular perspective on it, but it does raise, again, those issues that I've been talking about in my academic life for decades now. So I appreciate that it did that. I just don't think that's what they thought they were doing in 1957. But you know
Whether or
what?
not
Unintentional joys.
Well, and whether they meant it or not is irrelevant if it's there, right? So I think that qualifies as a like.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, I'm going to bring it up in a minute, but like, it made me go back to when I was reading about Bikini Atoll in the early days of my academic life. So, because that is, I think, in large respect, what this movie references right at the beginning when they start talking about nuclear testing. They're talking about Bikini Atoll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's a Baskin Robbins there now.
Certainly, I think the locals, as would be the more correct term these days, were perfectly justified in referring to the atomic fallout as devil dust. I mean, yeah,
Quite
sure.
literally, by the time things.
Sure, one of the scientists said it's only barely big, greater radiation here than normal background radiation. But they sure wouldn't have known that before they set off the tests.
Yeah.
And we see how well the scientists' proclamations of what works and what doesn't turn out throughout the film. And like I said, the calling it devil dust turns out to be literally true, given what it helps create.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, shall we move on to our dislikes now?
We should. David, what don't you like about this movie?
Well, I think I think you and I are going to overlap here in that there's the discussion of there's a thing I wish it had gone further with, right? That it basically what you were just talking about a moment ago. It raises. I mean, so it's one of the few films I can think of from that period that has even traces of the kind of anxiety of empire in an American context. The kind of thing that you'd see very explicitly worked out later in such Hammer films as The Reptile, with the British colonial heritage, and the fact that we have any trace of it at all in here, I find actually quite interesting, as clumsily executed as it is. And we've been discussing we learn very quickly that we can't take what these scientists are saying as the given of the film, right? That they keep turning out to be wrong. And there are also all sorts of other, clearly deliberate references, right? Do we have that British character and how did she make her money, right? So we have all of these, we have the echoes, we have the empire that's now been reduced to a joke. And we have the current empire that is just starting to, that's getting a little bit, twitchy or we have the return of the repressed starting to show up. And I do wish the movie had been able to go much further with that than it actually does.
I agree completely.
Right. Yeah. So your dislike is basically that the movie didn't do enough of what you were liking about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
You're correct. Because this film has the opportunity to really interrogate the relationship that's at the core of its narrative. Like, this movie's in 1957, but it is in so many ways wanting to comment upon like the ways that you'd see in like early sci-fi or like proto science fiction, where like, the like British show up at some mythical island somewhere and they're like, oh my god, look at all these savages. Like, it wants to say something about it, but it doesn't quite ever get there. And it's kind of unfortunate.
The fact that it's even there at all in a film of this stature, but certainly at this time, is itself kind of surprising.
Yeah, you have the scientists and the trader post woman saying horribly racist things, but they are clearly shown to be, screwing up constantly. And so that, by extension, puts everything that they say about the locals into disrepute. So, I did keep flinching when they said awful things, but at the same time, they were not being shown as paragons that we should, take their word for it about everything.
Well, I wonder how much...
They really are bulls in a china shop, aren't they?
They really
just
are.
kind of blunder along, think, we're doing this for the best, and by the end of it, all their actions have taken for the best has added immeasurably to a trees killer rampage.
Yes.
I wonder how much of this is being impacted by us today looking back, because this is 1957, and
I have no idea how much of that they intended in writing that script, and how much of it is our 21st century eyes looking back at it and saying, oh wow, they really hoisted themselves on their own petards, didn't they?
I mean, this is the same era where French cinema is censoring coverage of nuclear testing and nuclear use in Japan. I can't remember what the French director is. David, you might know. I don't know why I would say that you know. It's just because I figure you know more films than I do. But
talking about that René's Hiroshima Mon Amour?
Yes, Hiroshima Mon Amour. Yes, which is a wonderful film, and everybody should watch it. I really, really, really like that film. God, we should talk about that film, David.
But not today.
But the point I'm making is, like,
look, we've managed to work in Hiroshima Mon Amour and From Hell It Came into the same discussion. So, hey,
everything is connected.
I think it's like that. Weird
and the thing is,
era,
again,
though.
I mean, we can't know the intent, but which therefore renders the question almost moot, because whether it was intended or not, it's there. I mean, some of that dialogue is pretty overt.
Yes.
Right. I mean, when the question is raised as to how that woman and her deceased husband made their money, right? It's spelled out right there. Now,
you want to spell it out for everybody else who's watching who hasn't seen the movie
sorry,
yet?
yes, yeah. You made money with exchanging trinkets for jewels and. I forget what the other example is, right? But so clearly stating that you made your money through total colonial exploitation. Now, the American characters then can't take the next step and see their own complicity in this, right? That they cannot see, and to what degree does the film see it? Right, given the kind of casting that we have as well in the characters, that is a question. But it's again, so you wish it could have gone further. That it's there at all, and as overt as it is sometimes almost miraculous.
It is a good point. Yeah, that I think like part of, and I imagine Trish, you and I are gonna. I don't know if you had the same dislike I had, but like the fact that this film is so horrifically racist. It's possibly the most racist film we've watched for torture cinema, and yet it's sort of kind of astonishing that there is like in there buried a critique. It's just like they didn't bring the critique up enough to kind of cover over all the racism, because and that is like that's my dislike is. The way they talk about island peoples and the way they're presented, like there is effectively whatever we would call, some sort of brown face or islander face here, where it's a bunch of white actors playing supposed islanders doing voodoo for reasons. Like they're doing like voodoo doll stabbing, which, okay, sure. And they're constantly being referred to by our white Westerners as savages and all of this kind of like they're barbaric and like they're not.
And they also say they're like children.
They're like
with
children.
Their silly superstitions.
Well, and that goes back to, if you remember McKinley from an American perspective, when McKinley eventually takes over the Philippines because of the Spanish-American War, like one of the first things he says about the Philippines is like they are basically like children. Our job as colonial operators is to, like, they're capable of being more like us, but we must basically raise them up. It's not the verbatim language, but that's what he's
right, which is really sickening, if you know some of the history of what actually happened, which is that they had almost managed to throw off the Spanish rule, and then the Americans came sailing in and made a deal with the Spanish to just hand over control to the Americans. And so, the Americans come in and say, we freed you, and now we'll guide you for the next 70, whatever, how many years.
It's worth noting the American project in the Philippines as intended is a different one from the Spanish. The American project in actual practice is not what they intended, which is, I just want to emphasize that. Their belief is that they're helping them become democratic civil people. That's what they think they're doing. The goal for them is like raise them up and then they'll be able to do it themselves, and then we don't have to like be here doing it all. And then look at that, we like had a colony that like became wonderful. Whereas the Spanish is like an oppressive structure where it is like, we're here to micromanage you, and like you will never be Spanish subjects. The idea is like the Filipinos will become Americans with massive quotation marks around it, because of course they would never be in actual American empire. But like that's the rhetoric they use. And so like they send like school teachers over, to like teach them modesty and like all of these wonderful American values, blah, 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 blah. And then, what actually happens is not that, but, it's a whole other monstrosity. American empire is like insidious, I just gotta say, like, because it says, like, look how nice we are, and then it's like right in your back when you're not looking.
Yeah, we could certainly do another whole podcast or series about American empiricism, but I suppose we should try to stick to the topic here. Can
we talk about
more
Bikini
about
Atoll, though?
You do see that happening in the film, isn't it? I mean, with the American characters having precisely this kind of idea in their heads,
yes,
and then screwing it up spectacularly. Now, the problem, though, is, as you pointed out, the portrayal of the indigenous characters, which they are coming across as childlike, so that the film is both having something work and making it, and then like we have both the racism and some of the critique within it, but not so much of the former and not enough of the latter.
Yeah, it's like very much it wants to critique, but it can't get away from like this racist portrayal of like native peoples, where it makes them childish and seemingly without reason. The only like native islander peoples that are showed having reason are like the handful that come to the Westerners. It's never anyone else who's like, no, look, we have our ways of doing things. We've been here for like freaking 1,500 years. We kind of got it sorted. They're all like, all those other ones over there are just like, they're quote unquote savage, and like they just think, and they're like manipulating and like lies, right? The one chief is like just getting some from two different women who are like hate each other and like all that thing. And it's only like the really nice deferent ones who come to the Westerners and are like, oh, look at you, you're so wonderful, and we believe in your power, like all this kind of, they're the ones that are like the civilized ones. And again, right, neither one of them is presented to us as, the kind of adult perspective, as sort of fully free agent. They're both presented as childlike, infantilized, essentially. And that is really frustrating to see, because there is an opportunity in this story to actually point out that actually these local people may have knowledge that is fundamental, not only to like living and existing on the island, but to dealing with this supernatural thing that both sides have knowledge to bring. They know all about the like tree monster, right? And it's the Westerners who kind of figure out, oh, the way to solve it is not burn it, which is what you would normally do with wood, but we got to shoot it in the sacred dagger thingy, and then that solves it. But the film doesn't want to sort of have the moment where everyone goes, oh, maybe we were a little wrong about each other. And like, actually, we can find a way of coexist. Like, we could share our knowledge, which, like, again, goes to like the history, right? If you look at the United States, like the myths we tell about, like Thanksgiving, for example, where like, oh, like they showed up and like it didn't everybody get along, and it's like, well, like these people are almost gonna starve to death, and like the natives had to like help them not starve to death, and then they were repaid with blood. And we know exactly what's going to happen because they reference it here. Bikini Atoll is like implied here that and if you know anything about Bikini Atoll, right, they basically bought the island for next to nothing and then booted all the indigenous people off, dropped bombs on it, like to watch it. You can see video of them doing this. They expose all kinds of naval members to radiation as well. And then like just told them, oh shoot, we screwed up the island. You can't go back for a while. And it's just sort of this very frustrating thing where if you don't like view these people as fully realized agents that can make their own decisions, and maybe they don't know some stuff you know, but they have knowledge of their own that is built over generations in that local space, right? If you don't respect that, you just view them as objects that are like obstacles to be overcome, and it just drives me bananas. I'm sorry, I got a little angry because like I started going back to like my undergrad where I started learning about this stuff and being like, oh shit, the Americans did some evil crap. Like, what? Why did we do this? Damn it. Sorry, I went on a rant. I apologize, everybody. I will post a link to an article that everybody should read, though. You're welcome. It's bikinis and other Pacific Oceans or specific notions. Which is, yeah, anyway, you can look it up. It's by an author called T.K. Teoiwa, which I believe she's a Hawaiian. It's Teaiwa. Anyway, look it up if you would like. It's a really good paper. It's actually talking about the history of literally the bikini and where it came from and all of the colonial stuff associated with it. So next time you wear a bikini, you should feel guilty. You're welcome. Okay. Sorry, I ruined the moment. I apologize.
No, not ruined, but perhaps it is time to move on to the next dislike.
Yeah, yours.
Okay, mine. Well, I think everyone can probably, who has seen the movie, can guess what I'm going to say. The sexism. Oh my god.
Yep.
Are you saying it's sexist, Trish?
Oh. Yeah, the movie, I mean, the quote that I started the podcast with, why did I have to fall in love with a female scientist? Or rather, with a female scientist. I hate the lead character, Dr. Bill Arnold. He is in love with Dr. Terry Mason, but he does not actually, they could be a cool globe-trotting scientist couple, but that is not what he wants. He wants to take her back to the U.S. and put her in a house and have her have babies. He pretty much flat out states that. He wants her to drop her scientist career. He's constantly hitting on her. I'm not totally clear that she actually wants him back. I mean, there's a lot of stuff about I want to keep doing my career at the beginning, but from the expressions on her face, either they just cast two people with no charisma, or the actress Tina Carver personally hated Todd Andrews, the actor, or something. But she always looked to me like she was just saying placating things as women often do have to say to men, thinking of other things to say than just, I don't like you, leave me alone. Instead, she would say, but my career, I want to study this thing. So bad. So very bad.
Sorry, go on.
He's obviously the one that I have the biggest grudge, but nobody else stands up for her either and says, hey, maybe you should let her keep using her mind instead of just, making her have babies.
Yeah.
Whew,
are you referring to the line, there's the line, right? Terry, will you stop being a doctor first and a woman second? Let your emotions rule you, not your intellect.
Yes.
He uses that.
It's that blatant and that bad.
Oh, it gets worse.
Yeah. At the end, when the monster is finally gone and he, dips her on one of those, make her helpless kisses, the other two scientists, let's see, Professor Clark and whoever the other one is, are saying to each other, well, I guess she's gonna go back to the States and have babies after all. Not that exact word, but that's what they're saying. But we never actually hear her confirm, and I like to hope that maybe she manages to fend him off in the end.
I can't tell you how relieved I was that we don't actually get any final dialogue between those two.
Yes! That's why I get to think that maybe she rejects him finally after all, instead of her confirming this. Let's see, I was so distracted by hating this relationship and personal that I did not watch to see if this movie met the Bechdel test. Can either of you remember?
Oh my
Lord. Not even close, I don't think. I mean, we barely have... no, because the only time that the two women are alone together, the British widow is established as perpetually man crazy. So
right,
I think she's always talking about other men. I don't think that.
Right. How about when Dr. Terry Mason is taking the shower and Orchid, the local, is standing there, waiting with a towel or whatever she's doing, having this conversation with Terry while Terry is taking a shower.
So that part of that conversation
they might have avoided speaking about men there, but it's hardly in a reassuring context.
Well, to be fair, the Bechdel test is not meant to get a film out of sexism. It's just it just gets it out of the first level.
I mean, the first time that we hear her mentioned, our hero uses that violent image, words to the effect that he's so frustrated with her he could knock her teeth in. Which this is how we first meet him and first get to hear about her. It's like, our hero, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I will read you that dialogue. It's between Clark and Professor Clark and Dr. Arnold. And that dialogue says, Dr. Arnold says, "Why did I fall in love with a dedicated female scientist? She considers marriage some kind of prison." And Professor Clark says, "What do you expect from a pretty girl 2 years out of med college? She wants excitement, adventure. She thinks of routine as a middle-aged thing." And Dr. Arnold says, "There are some times I could kick her beautiful teeth in. Here I offer her the earth, the moon, the stars." And I would just say, sir, you have offered her frickin' nothing. All you've offered her is yourself, and you, no offense, buddy, you are not the earth, the moon, and the stars. You are one bad date at the bar. That's what you are. And so it's really gross. Why does he say, bro, just say some romantic stuff and be like, one day I would like to be at home and we could have some kids, but let's have adventure now. Because that's what she wants. She wants adventure. Just let her have some adventure. Go adventure with her. Why don't you adventure with her?
Why is he globe-trotting scientists would be the goal there, but no, that is not what he wants.
No.
And there isn't any excuse because the film we do have the precedent even in terms of science fiction films from this era from a couple of years previously, both the female scientist figures in Them and It Came From Beneath the Sea, who have agency, and particularly in the latter, where she not only does she diagnose what the problem is, a giant octopus, she develops the torpedo that's going to kill the giant octopus, and at the end, when the unreconstructed chauvinist hero Kenneth Tobey asks her to marry him, and which we get so in film after film after film after film, we know what the answer is. Here, the answer is no, but you can come with me on my book tour.
I get it's the 50s, but like, my lord, bro. By the way,
But
that
the thing
dialogue.
is, those were 50.
Right.
But that's the thing. I mean, those were two 50s films from before this one.
Yeah.
Right. Which
So,
actually had
yeah.
strong female characters who got to praise for being strong female characters instead of, we must reform this strong female character and turn her into a baby machine.
Oh, Lord. Ugh. By the
So,
way,
yeah,
I think we all missed, and maybe Trish, you missed this too, but like Clark tells him at one point, forget her, find somebody else. And he says, I've tried dozens of times. And I feel like that might have been the clue. Like, bud, maybe it was you. Like,
I did miss that.
The film literally is trying to suggest to us that, like, oh, she's making googly eyes at him. Because I think it's implied very strongly that she is interested in him, but she cares about her career, and he is very nuclear family, pun intended. But at the same time, like, dude, if all you want is like a housewife, then go find somebody for whom that's what they want. And let the scientist lady go find her Nigel. Like, let her find her little adventurous Nigel guy, and they can become the wild thornberries and move on with their lives. I don't understand, like, this. She said no how many times to you, dude? Like, move on. If she's not interested after the 15th, like, the 16th shouldn't change it. Apparently, all it takes is evil tree monster. And then she's like, oh, I'm changing my mind. Maybe I've had enough. Like, I want a stable life and just make some babies because that's way more normal than this shit. I hate it. Ugh, good lord. It's sexist, Trish. I'm with you. 100%.
Yep.
I hate it.
So, Shaun, what is your dislike? Your
I already did mine.
Your primary dislike.
Oh, it's that it's racist as hell. Yeah, I already did mine, technically. Yeah, it's so
we did
racist.
that one. Do you have any other things besides racism and sexism that you hate about this movie?
I will say I hate that the motivation for Chief Maranka and Chemo's wife is apparently she wants the chief, but the chief is a philanderer who just like goes after other ladies, and she's surprised by this. I just find like and then she betrays the chief again, and it's like, well, no offense, lady, but like now you've like doubly proved you can't betray because you have no loyalty to. You're just like wherever like highest bidder at this point. You'll betray everybody, and it really drives me nuts because I feel like I don't know, like her character just be. Of course, it's not going to be interesting. It's 1957, so of course not. But like. It would be nice if we could have a thing that isn't like, I'm mad because you boned another lady. Like, cool. Maybe you just don't go after the power-hungry guy who you obviously know has boned other women. That's what he does.
Well, yes, and she shouldn't be surprised that he doesn't trust her, because why would anyone trust her after she betrayed her own husband?
Right. People not understand that? If you murder your husband and then want to be with another, why would that guy trust you?
Mm-hmm.
You murdered the last
guy. There's a fair number of movies from the 50s on where, women betray people to help some other man and then are surprised when that man does not. I guess it's a morality thing to warn women not to betray their men.
Or just don't murder? I mean, it is 1957, so, like, I guess divorce doesn't really exist, but, like, Yeah,
I'm actually talking about other movies with murder plots, like Double Indemnity and stuff like that. They're, various noir movies. I'm sure I said that wrong.
Look how much we get. We get a female subplot in a film that also combines supernatural and science fictional horror. So it's like this movie's one-stop shopping. 70 minutes.
I'll give it credit. It does have a lot in it. It's for a film.
Yes, you have to give it that much credit.
Yeah.
It's not dull. It's not dull at all.
No, there's definitely meat in here. This is a film like, I would say this, that it's not a good movie, but it is a film that is interesting compared to some bad films we've watched that are also not good movies and boring as hell. Which I imagine if Becca was here, Becca would say that about the asteroid, which we watched, because that's not a terribly exciting film. Although I think we were both genuinely surprised at how not sexist that film is.
Yes.
And I will just note, we have watched this film, and as a reminder, folks, it can get way more sexist than you could ever imagine. This one is pretty darn sexist. So, like, next time
at least this one did have a smart female character in it who apparently has respect from the institute she works for, even if she makes some bad decisions in this movie.
That's a good point. She is a career lady in 1957 and a scientist. So she is respected.
Professor Clark says, Terry Mason's doing a great job on Baku Island, and I don't think the Foundation would want to lose her. So, she has respect in her profession. Good for her.
Well, I mean, in this regard, she's not an unusual character in 50 science fiction films. There are a lot of them. Mm-hmm. But she does. But what happens with her is a definite step backwards from what we get in them, and it came from beneath the sea, even in the Giant Claw with its great Gonzo vulture monster. But our heroine is a crack shot with a rifle, right? Ooh. So there's I'm from Montana, she says, by way of explanation to a surprised Chef Morrow. You have already by 57 a pretty long tradition of these sorts of characters. They're almost a standard trope by this point, and so unfortunately we have a kind of breaking down of that character in this film. It's coming at the end of the decade.
That's sad, David. It's breaking my heart, buddy. Well, do we want to get to final thoughts and grade this monstrosity?
Let's do it.
Okay, well, I would like us to grade on the leaf scale if we can.
What?
Could you explain the leaf scale? Okay, I don't know the scale.
A 1 out of 5 is a pine needle. A 2 out of 5 is a birch leaf. A 3 out of 5 is a manzanita leaf. A 4 out of 5 is...
I'm sorry, a what?
A manzanita leaf.
What was the third one?
Manzanita leaf, yeah. And then a 4 out of 5 is a maple leaf, and a 5 out of 5 is an oak leaf. But like one of those giant oaks that like grows forever and is like 8 million years old. One of those. Yeah. We don't actually have to grade on this scale. I'm making this up on the spot. Trish just written it into chat.
Because I knew I wouldn't be able to remember.
I didn't even think this through. Like, I don't even know if a manzanita is smaller than a maple leaf. Probably not.
No idea.
No, manzanita. I remember manzanitas back.
Well, that's
California.
Okay, because I'm not getting as high as manzanita. I don't know about the rest of you.
Well, okay. In all honesty, David, final thought and a grade, please.
So yeah, I mean, it's certainly it's not a high watermark of 50s SF horror. It's not a great film. The sexism and the racism is pretty darn bad. Though I would say I had a kind of corrective experience just before rewatching. And I do emphasize this is not my first rodeo with From Hell It Came. So just before rewatching it, I watched Jaws of the Jungle from 1937, and in terms of in terms of racism and sexism, that film makes From Hell It Came look like a shining beacon of progressivism. And in terms of sheer competence, it makes From Hell It Came look like it was directed by Stanley Kubrick. You truly have not seen really bad until you've seen Jaws of the Jungle. That is not a recommendation. But I have a great deal of affection for Tabanga, just not out. There is stuff happening in the film, even if it's half baked or half formed. There is stuff there. And to be honest, if you gave me the choice between From Hell It Came or whatever $300 million 2.5 hour trailer for next summer's $300 million 2.5 hour trailer, then good old Tabanga is going to win every single time. So I guess it's a manzanita leaf, maybe, and a half.
That's a C plus, I guess.
Yeah, that sounded like a Manzanita plus to me.
A Manzanita plus. Okay, Trish, what about you?
Right, well, as we have belabored, it is very sexist, it is very racist, although arguably you can debate about, whether the racism is unconsciously skewered or not in it. But it moves fast. It has a lot to think about, and I do love Tabanga. So I'm tempted to give it a Manzanita minus, but I think my final grade is going to be Birch plus.
Okay.
Which is like D plus.
D plus. Okay. Yeah, I will concur with most of what David said, other than enjoying this film, which David seems to be in that boat, and I'm not quite there. But yeah, I would say the racism and the sexism are loathsome, and I'm not a big fan. But also completely and utterly expected because it's the 1950s, so I suppose I should not have been terribly surprised by it. But we keep seeing films and we're like, oh, this isn't as sexist as we thought it would be. And then we got this one and it's actually about as sexist and racist as we thought it would be. So, but yeah, I would, I can't be this nice. So for me, it's a D minus.
Ooh.
Sorry,
Birch
guys.
minus, you mean?
A birch minus.
Don't
Sorry,
even stick to your own rules.
Yeah,
right.
It's a small birch. It's a small birch leaf rather than a regular or an extra large. Yeah. So I think that puts us at like a D plus-ish is our average.
Yeah, it's between a Birch plus and a Manzanita minus.
I love how you all remember my made-up grading scale better than me.
Kelswitch01 says, the Manzanita plant has cute flowers. I just looked it up.
They're
Thank
all
you
over
for
California.
looking that up, Kelswitch1.
They're beautiful.
Yeah, so right, between Birch Plus and Manzanita Minus, which, is, better than this movie probably has a right to expect.
I'll go with the D. I'll go with the D, and that puts us at it's actually the same thing, isn't it? Because if we do a D plus D, oh no, C plus C, okay, so C, oh god, no, that puts us at a C minus, right? No, that's like a D plus.
It's between D plus and C minus.
Problem solved. Okay, Paul needs to do the math for us. Help us out, Paul. But before we get that, we're going to sign this show off, so.
Yeah, so I would not say, for a final thought, there are certainly torture cinema movies that I've watched that I would say nobody should watch this movie, ever. I wouldn't go that far here. I do think you need to go in with a critical eye and be ready, hopefully have someone that you can discuss points with about it. It is not a worthless movie. There are some quite interesting things to think about with it. So, I wouldn't call this torture. It had some jabs and flinches, but not torture as far as I'm concerned.
Small
I bought
victory.
it twice.
Sorry, David, what was that?
I bought it twice.
David bought this twice.
So what, on Blu-ray and on CD back in the day, or what?
DVD and an HD download. I'm sure if I had it. Did I have a VHS? No, I think the DVD was the first time I got it.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I have not bought 2 copies of Mac and Me. All right.
A little better.
Yeah, you should feel better, but not at all. So, I think, Trish, you're next in the script, I believe. So that is you. You take us out. Begin the process.
Sorry about that. Yes, we do have a lot of things to say.
We have time.
Before we sign off, we would like to take a moment to thank all of our Patreon sponsors. Our Patreon support has increased by almost 20% in the last few months, and we'd like to thank our wonderful new supporters, along with our longtime dedicated ones. The more support we have, the more wonderful things we can do for our fans, whom we very much appreciate. Thank you.
First, a special welcome to our newest supporters, Dan X the Transient, JCB the Jazzy, JMC the Jaunty, Munro S the Melodic, and Victor R the Venerable.
And a shout out to all of our dedicated supporters who've been with us for a long time. That is Adam F the Affable, Andrea Double, Andrea, I believe that's Andrea W, the Abiding, Cameron C the Chthonic, or Chthonic, whichever, I don't know how to pronounce it. David, how do you pronounce Chthonic? You know this.
Chthonic is what I think.
Okay, I will go with
Chthonic,
I defer to you. Caroline M. the Benevolent, Carrie D. the Divine, Chris H. the Colorful, Daniel H. the Culture, David A. the Debonair, who's actually present with us at the moment. That's David A. the Debonair. Or depending which video you're looking at, it's either this way or this way. And Heather R. J. the Magnanimous, Jeff X. the Gracious, and Joe X. the Jovial.
Also, 1S the Just, KBW the Kind, Karen H. the Bright, Cat X. the Sith, Matthew C. the Magnificent, Paul W. the Pious, hi Paul, Phoebe B. the Eloquent, Robin H. the Bold, Ryan F. the Resilient, Sarah A. the Sensational, and Sarah E. the Sublime.
Sarah O. the Rapturous, Scott L. the Gentleman, Stephen G. M. the Strange, Terry C. V. the Talented, Tanya R. M. the Space Aged, and Trish M. the Imperturbable.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, that's the show. So make sure to follow the Skiffing Fanty show wherever it exists. We're basically Skiffing Fanty almost anywhere. Our social media includes like Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, and some other places. You can find all of that at our Linktree, linktr.ee/skiffingfanty. Please get our newsletter at skiffingfanty.com/newsletter. And as always, please support us on Patreon. It helps us pay for hosting and all kinds of fun stuff at patreon.com/skiffingfanty. And please give those reviews on iTunes and other Podchasers. This helps us a lot. For me, I'm at Shaun Duke. I'm Alphabet Streams here on Twitch. I do Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7, and Skiffing Fanty's going to be every Friday at 7 from now on. And I have a Patreon at /JoyFactory, and I'm on all the socials as well. My Linktree is /Shaun Duke, and you can find me at lots of places.
Okay. Before I give my socials, I'll just note that Prince Justin has averaged it out, and the translated score for this movie for Torture Cinema is Manzanita minus.
The Manzanita minus, the new grading scale. I love it.
You can find me, Trish M, on Blue Sky at P.E. Matson, on Mastodon at newsy.social at Trish M, and on my blog at www.whatsthewordnow.blogspot.com.
You can find me on Mastodon at David Annandale at social.horrorhub.club, on my blog at davidannandale.com, and you can track down my latest book, Callous and Tall, from Black Library.
Yeah, David writes Warhammer stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's written a lot of Warhammer stuff, just FYI.
And a pretty cool Doctor Doom novel, or more than one. He wrote some sequels too, right?
I've got a trilogy of Doctor Doom.
A trilogy,
now, yeah.
Awesome.
Holy crap! That's like a dream come true, isn't it?
It is, yeah, very much so. Yeah. Favorite Marvel character, bar none.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, David, I'm just gonna ask you because I figure we can make this awkward by making this about you. But next time you have like a book thing, yell at us and we'll interview you about it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Make it super
Yeah.
awkward and be like, we'll pretend like we're not your friends.
I'll remember that and think of you with great hatred, and that'll make me remember.
Why did your characters make all these questionable decisions, David?
Why is this a
right,
reflection on you? What are you also like when you like if you wrote a Warhammer 40K, like, yeah, you definitely are pro Empire, right? Yeah, you like just running around with guns.
Your characters do evil things, so you must be evil too, right, David?
Yeah, well, it's a 1-to-1 correspondence. Yeah, what can I say?
I feel like of all people we have had on this show, you're like you just can't do, like, David watches a buttload of horror. Like, horrible things happen to characters that David talks about. I feel like you can't just assume, yeah, that's what David really thinks about the world. It's like, at that point, it's like, no, that is just by default irrational to think that. Well, on that note.
All right, well.
Awkward ending and scene.
I hope that all our viewers and listeners can take care of yourselves and each other.
Have a potato.
Did you say, wait,
what was that, David?
Hot potato?
Have a potato.
Have a potato? Is that your tagline?
It's my awkward ending.
Yeah, that works.
I'm quoting the old Dark House.